To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejados de las puertas.
Here's the wildest ride in the world.
When industry doors change.
So today on Miles from Main Street, we are talking about Coronado Springs and the All-Star Resorts. We're going to kind of go through these two resorts and talk about some strengths, some weaknesses, and kind of compare them and see how they stack up with each other. These are two resorts that I actually very much enjoy, and so I'm really excited about talking about this.
Yeah, I think that they're both really great resorts. I love both of them as well, so I'm excited to talk about them. Before we get into that, I wanted to revisit our locals versus faraway fans episode that we did a couple of weeks ago. We had a comment out on Facebook that I thought was really well done, and I wanted to read it here. Clara Sandrin was talking to us out there. She had listened to the episode, and she said, "Ooh, interesting. As someone who lived in Florida growing up, moved away, and now moved to Orlando, this is super interesting. I have 100% changed how I go to the park living 20 minutes away than when I lived even 2 hours away. Sometimes my boyfriend and I only get on one ride because we aren't willing to wait in crazy lines. When we come back, I can read. When we sorry. When we can come back another time. I don't wait in long lines because I live here. So interesting point in the episode about that. But the conversation about food was interesting because to me growing up, it wasn't just time but money as to why we never did sit down. Now I'm just starting to try different restaurants because we've decided to try Disney stuff instead of doing date nights around town elsewhere. But honestly, so far, most of the places we've tried are do it once and then we don't have to come back. So great, interesting episode. Clara, thank you so much for writing that to us. I think that you've hit it on the nail. Like, it's a lot different when you're living there. You guys said it, like, you don't have to get into a long line because you can come back another time and catch a shorter line. I really enjoyed what she said about restaurants, that she never really did it because they didn't want to spend the money. And now that she's been there long enough that she is starting to try those restaurants. So I hope she starts finding some restaurants she likes, though. It's too bad that she hasn't found one to go back to. Maybe we should talk to you about that sometime. I'm sure I can point in the right direction.
Yeah, that's really cool, and that's kind of that's what we talked about. Is that like your perceptions of like what you're willing to do, and like what's good and what's bad completely changes when it's something that you can kind of just go back to. So that is cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. Kind of, a lot of what we talked about, just reiterating it, but it was really nice to have her talk. I hope she's enjoying listening to some of our back catalog now. And, if you guys want to hit us up on any of the socials or email, and, we'll talk to you on our show, read the comment as well. So thanks again, Clara, for sending that in.
Yeah, I think this was the first time that we've had housekeeping. Our first little housekeeping thing. So that's cool. And keep them coming. Keep the comments coming because we want that, and we want to be able to talk about Disney with y'all. So it's fun stuff. Anyways, hotels. We're comparing two hotels. We're comparing Coronado Springs and the All-Stars. Now these are two wildly different, not as different as could be, but very different types of resorts. All-Star is a value resort. It's a pretty big resort. However, so is Coronado Springs. So this is a decent comparison. We're going to go ahead and include all three areas of All-Star. All-Star has All-Star Movies, All-Star Sports, and All-Star Music. So you've got those three areas, and they're basically separate hotels, but it's all kind of like they're all on one strip. So, and then we've got Coronado Springs, which is also a massive hotel, but sits more in the moderate area, the moderate category of hotels, and it's also for me they've done a lot of updates, and I would almost say that this sits in like a low deluxe area of hotels. But there's a lot of things that kind of constitute that.
Yeah, they are really pushing the boundaries of the moderate level, and I think that looking at definitions of moderate versus deluxe, you can still see the differences between the two. So it's a really, really nice place, though, and I love what they've done with that tower and what they've added to that resort.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and start with All-Stars. The All-Stars, like I said, are a value resort, and their theming is king here. Like everything is themed. It's themed very well. And everything is kind of larger than life. They did that on purpose because this is definitely the place where you can bring small children. A lot of large groups end up staying here. Most of the time, cheerleaders, like cheer groups and bands and stuff like that, will end up staying at the All-Stars. So everything is themed very big, and it's very fun and whimsical there. I very much enjoy it. So we've got movies, music, and sports. As you can imagine, the sports area is just filled with a whole bunch of sports. And my favorite area in that is the football. They have like a giant football field. They used to have X's and O's on it, but now that they took it away, so now it's just a straight football field. So that's always been fun. When I was young, I would throw a football around with my brother there, and we would kick field goals.
I'm surprised you didn't say the hockey area for the Mighty Ducks. I always enjoyed that section.
I'm getting there.
Sorry.
But yeah, the sports area. The theme is sports, so it's pretty decently Disney. But they've got the sports kind of shoehorned in there a little bit. But each resort has its own little lobby area. So they've got the food court in there. They've got an area where you can shop and get all that stuff, and then the area that you check in. It's not that big. It's smaller compared to a lot of the other resorts. But yeah, and then everything else, it's kind of laid out like motel. So you've got exterior doors, and you go into your room that way. Whereas at other resorts, you'll kind of walk into a building, and you'll have the rooms all in a building. At these resorts, it's kind of more motel-y, where you've got the door on the outside, and you go in that way.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I kind of feel like it's the older style of hotel to have your door go right to the outdoor. You said, a motel. It still is something that is very enjoyable. That's how I remember Disney always being. Like, that's a core memory, I guess, is having that door going to the outside. And I can remember on our honeymoon getting up in the morning and walking out the door into 95-degree humid weather and losing my breath right away, right?
Yeah.
So I guess you kind of get a little transition time between that and walking through the building in other places. But, as part of the comparison, if you think about Coronado Springs, a lot of those buildings are older, and they have that exact same layout where your hotel door or your room door is going right to the outside. And you get a window, and it's really cool, either in the All-Stars or the Coronado or any of these other places that have that set up, that people will put decorations in their window.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have put dry erase markers and boards up on their door so that you can get comments from people during the day. Yeah, we tried to do that. Like, we'd put sticky notes out for people to use, and then we would like write a question, "Where are you from?" or something, and then people would leave a sticky note behind saying where they're from. So it was kind of fun doing that, and people will do that. I think that's a really cool thing to do. So the All-Star Resort, I think, is huge.
Mm-hmm.
But it's built where the family of four is king, right? Like, that has always bothered me, and Disney has started doing better at creating rooms and space that a fifth person can fit into. So if you're looking for that, the music portion has suites, I guess, that you can fit a family of five into. And they don't have a lot of them, but they do have them. So it's something that you can look at. I have stayed at the music and the movies. I have not been in the sports area, but I like both of them. They're, one of the things you're going to get with the All-Star is that it's going to be busy. This is the cheapest on-property selection that you have, right? So it's busy. I remember every morning that food court's packed. And, if you're hitting breakfast at breakfast time, it's going to be packed. So if you have an off day, maybe sleep in a little bit so you don't have to eat with the masses. But the nice thing also with this resort is, because of how they're kind of together, you can walk between the three and maybe try the different food courts. I know that a lot of people think the All-Star Movie food court is one of the best food courts on property.
Yeah, and this actually comes from the fact that they, and this is something with a bunch of other food courts, but I think this is the only value resort. I bet Art of Animation has this too, but they actually have like special request, like special food items that you can order at the All-Star Movies food court. I think they halted that recently because of COVID, because actually what they do is if you ask for something from the special menu, they bring you a viewfinder, and you actually look through the viewfinder at the things you can get. On that list, there is a donut hamburger. So yeah, it's some pretty funky stuff. And I know that I've watched several vloggers go there and be pleasantly surprised at how good a lot of that secret menu stuff is. So that's one thing that you can do there that people like to talk about, and it's something pretty fancy with that. But just in general, that food court is actually pretty great. It's definitely the bigger of the three. Movies, definitely, the layout is a little different than all the other places. But I would have to say, I mean, I've been to all three, so I would definitely say that Movies is the better food court. And I mean, I don't know. I would say Movies is also the best resort out of the three, just because of the fun theming. The theming makes it's kind of easier to get into that theming where it's just movies rather than music. Some of the areas kind of don't make sense, and then sports, a lot of the areas don't really like jump into Disney very well. But yeah, I enjoy. Again, just like you, I grew up coming to these places because they were just so cheap, and we had a big family, and so it was a lot easier to kind of fit us all into these rooms and not really break the bank all that much. So yeah, I have a lot of really good core memories about these resorts?
Yeah, they're. My wife and I stayed there, on a solo trip not too long ago because we knew that we were just using it as a place to rest our head before we went back to doing more Disney stuff. So it's great for that reason. So, we kind of were giving a little bit of a tour and got sidetracked. But if you go back to being in the food court, you come walking out of the food court towards the pool area, and it's a decent sized pool right there, decently themed. You're not going to get any type of slide, but you're still going to get your activities. You're going to get your movie Under the Stars.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely will do that there. They have all of the different crafts going on. I know that they'll do them out by the pool if the weather's nice, and they'll bring it inside near the gift shop or the entrance to the food court if the weather's not good. So the nice thing about these is, if you stay within your one themed resort, you're not going to be walking entirely far to get to your room. You might end up in the back of that resort, but it's still not like incredibly far. So it's good. I like the layout of these resorts. Anything else?
Yeah, and they're all three set up the same way. And so there isn't just one pool for all three resorts. All three resorts actually have several pools in them, and they're all kind of set up in that same way, where as soon as you get out of the main lobby area, there's a pool. If you go left or right, there's different lands there. It's almost kind of like hub and spoke. It's almost exactly hub and spoke. So they did a good job of setting the layout really well. So, but yeah, it's they're fun, they're whimsical, they're cheap. Definitely the cheapest resort on property, and you can see it. But that doesn't mean that it's bad. The updates that they just recently did with these rooms make them feel like modern rooms, like modern rooms that you would find at really any hotel that you go to. So that definitely helps, because kind of before they did kind of feel a little stuffy and older. But now that they have those updates, I mean, they feel great and modern. So I definitely have to tip my hat to them on that one, because the updates were great. But next up, we are talking about Coronado Springs. This is another big resort. The whole resort actually goes around like a little water area.
I wouldn't say that lagoon is little.
Yeah. I almost said
big.
I almost said lake, which I guess it would kind of fall into a lake. I don't know if it has a name. I can't remember, but they do have a small lagoon, and the whole resort kind of like revolves around this lagoon. And they have paths, actually not paths, but they're like bridges that go over this lagoon, so you can kind of get from one side to the other. I think those didn't exist before. So before, you literally had to go all the way around and then all the way back. And the pool where I was staying when I stayed here was literally on the other side of the lagoon. So it's like I would have had to have literally navigated this whole lagoon just to get to the pool. But they have bridges that kind of cut this lagoon in half. And then in the middle of that is, I think it's called bridges, or like 4 bridges or something like that.
Three bridges.
3 bridges.
You'll never see that name like anywhere when you go to that. It's a bar and grill, I believe they call it. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of built like a lounge where you can't get a reservation. But everything says Villa del Lago, but for some reason it's always called 3 Bridges, and not sure why that is. But from what I understand, it's a really nice place, really good food. It was not there when I stayed, which it would have been nice, because you're right, it was a long walk. We stayed in the Casitas.
Yes,
which
me
if
too.
you walk out of, I guess if you were out of the new tower, it's kind of off to the left. Mm-hmm. It'd be across the lake from the pool.
Yep.
And they have their own private pool back there. That was the nice thing about this resort, is that they do have other pools, so you don't have to make your way over to the main pool.
Yeah, and a fun fact about the Three Bridges, that's where all of the NBA stars used to hang out when COVID was happening and they were doing the NBA finals in that bubble. I know I saw several pictures of Giannis and a bunch of Bucks just hanging out in that area. I always thought that was pretty cool. But this is a moderate resort. It has the Gran Destino Tower, which was recently constructed. And this is really just kind of what brings this hotel and this resort to like a completely new level. Especially for me, because walking in there, it feels like a deluxe resort. Just like having that tower and the artwork that's in there, and there's a little bar in there at the bottom, and then at the top there's a restaurant. I didn't end up eating there because, like Brian said, a lot of times I just kind of treat these resorts like a bed, and that's kind of what I did on this one. But my parents were able to utilize a lot of the resort, so that's always good. But yeah, it's the Gran Destino Tower is great. They have a club level, which this is the first time any moderate resort has had a club level, so that's interesting. And I believe they also have, or maybe they don't have a spa. I thought they did have a spa, and that was another thing that none of the other moderates have. I can't remember. We'll have to look that one up. Probably take this part out. But so yeah, it's got a lot of that deluxe feel, and the rest of the resort actually feels really great too, and it's kind of like put into this resort, and it all really makes sense. It's not kind of like there's this really great tower, and then the rest of this resort is not as good. It actually kind of all really flows together very well. I very much enjoyed it. There were a lot of really great views while we were there, views that you don't really get at value resorts. So that was really fun. But yeah, it's the theme is really cool, and just kind of like having a lot of those amenities there while still paying moderate pricing was really fun. I think this is not really like a hack, but like I feel like if I want to feel deluxe and I don't want to pay deluxe prices, like this is where I would go. So.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that they do have a spa there, which I don't believe there's any other moderate that has a spa.
Oh, so, wow, yeah. I didn't know that. That's really cool. And I think now that you mention it, I think that is like a typical deluxe thing, is that they'll have a spa on site.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool that they have that available as well. I had mentioned with the All-Star having to walk, and we had already kind of talked about the walk. Mm-hmm. But, at the end of a day, if you're taking a bus back to this resort, you're going to be walking quite a ways to get back to your room if you're staying at the casitas. Mm-hmm. They do have, though, an internal bus system to get you around that great big lake. So you can get a bus back to your room. So you're not having to do all that walking if you've already put on 15 miles for that day. But it, that does add time for transportation, having to wait for that bus to show up. But it, that's an option. I know that there were many nights that we would get back because, of course, we were going hard every day at every park as much as we could. And we would get back to our room, and it was a literal debate between the two of us. Do we take our cups and go up to the food court to get some soda while we relax before the end of the night? Like, do we have it in us to make it that far and back? Again, you could take the bus around to get up to the lobby so that you could get in and get your stuff. But again, it's more time, and maybe you don't want to spend that kind of time. I don't know. But it's still a great place to stay. I loved staying there. And it's well worth the nice walk. I always just was like, it's a nice, quiet stroll. It might take you a while. It might be a mile long. I don't remember how long it was, but it seemed like it was pretty long at times.
Yeah, this is kind of something I wanted to talk about because it was something that kind of hit my memory just now. And I think I've mentioned this before on the show, but I loved doing that. I actually did that on my most recent trip with Kristen, where I would just like grab the glasses that we had and just take them out and like get some soda and come back, and we would drink some soda and hang out and then fall asleep. And I loved doing that because it's like, yeah, like you're in a hotel room that's themed to Disney, which is really fun, but it's just kind of like being able to get out and walk through this Disney hotel that you're at, and just like it feels like you're taking in more Disney. I've done it before where I flew in really late with my family, and we were staying at an All-Star. And we got to the hotel and everybody was tired, but I was jazzed that we were at Disney, and I was so excited that I let everybody go to sleep, and I walked out and just started looking at stuff because I was just so happy we were there, and I was just kind of taking everything in. And so I guess that's kind of like why I enjoy doing that. Like why I enjoy just like grabbing the cups and like going to the lobby and getting some soda and just taking in, because it's a Disney hotel. And I guess that just kind of speaks to the fact, like why I'm a Disney adult, and like why like I like this so much is because like I can just never get enough of it. And so that's kind of like another reason why I do enjoy that. However, the walk at Coronado Springs will make me second guess that several times. I have to say, I've stayed at faraway resorts or faraway rooms before at the All-Stars, but they never really felt like that bad of a walk compared to Coronado. There are even bigger resorts than Coronado, so I can only imagine what other people's walks are like. But that is another thing to take into account. There is an internal bus loop, like you said, and that can kind of suck sometimes because there were several times we were getting up to go to the parks, and like the Epcot bus would just drive by because it like had enough people already. So we figured that out pretty quick, and we ended up walking to the first stop every single time. But yeah, that can also happen where buses fill up. That can also happen also at the All-Star because that can happen because that internal bus loop services all the resorts. That bus route services all those resorts. So they stop at every single All-Star resort until it's full up. So that's another thing. So mentioning that, these two resorts are extremely similar, just kind of in like size and transportation as well. I would have to say, though, I definitely had a harder time, and maybe this is just like when we went, because we went during Thanksgiving, but I had a harder time with transportation at Coronado than I did at All-Stars, which is actually kind of surprising just because of how many people are at the All-Star. Now, my most recent trip at the All-Star, I had never noticed this, or like I've never had to do this before. But if you're trying to go to Magic Kingdom early in the morning, you have to wake up really early in the morning because there will be a line for the bus. We encountered that, and we got in that line. It wasn't that bad because I think they understand that there's going to be a crap ton of people trying to get on these buses. But that was something that I had never actually encountered before. And so this might be a whole nother episode, Brian, but it kind of got me thinking, are novice Disney fans becoming more knowledgeable? Because, I mean, that's something I would do. I would wake up super early to go rope drop. And it seemed like everybody at our hotel was getting up early to go rope drop. It was insane. So that can be something else. We can put that on the list of possible things to talk about. Are novice Disney guests getting more learned with Disney? But that's neither here nor there. These two resorts, we can kind of jump into kind of like back and forth on them, and we can kind of start critiquing them a little bit towards each other. And I feel like the big elephant in the room is that one is a value and one is a moderate, and one of them is probably the best moderate that they have out there. They are very similar in kind of like scope and like size and transportation, but when it comes to like theming and amenities, Coronado definitely has the All-Stars beat. I mean, like by a mile. Theming, that can kind of go either way. Like if you really want your resort to be super Disney, then stay at All-Star Movies. Like that's like the pinnacle. you're gonna see a lot of really cool imagery that is very, very Disney if you stay at these resorts. Whereas Coronado Springs is a little more like subtle Disney. It's a really fun, fancy resort to go to, but it's very subtle Disney, which a lot of people like.
And up top is the Dahlia Lounge that also has some nods in it to the film. So, if you go around, you'll see some posters and pictures of both artwork from the film and also of Mr. Dali and of Walt. So look carefully for that stuff. I think it's a really neat nod to that film, and great theming that they did around all of that. And I gotta point out the bar that you said is down below at the bottom of the tower. There's a giant hidden Mickey behind that bar in the glass. Yep. I think that one is so cool. So I gotta point that out. I hope you guys know what I'm talking about. It's hard to see unless you stand back and really look for it. It's really neat.
Yeah, it's a really cool place. Yeah, the Grand Casino Tower is very cool. I kind of wish that when I stayed there, I was actually staying in that tower, but I didn't. But very, very cool tower. It definitely gives you deluxe vibes, so that feels great. But one thing I did want to kind of talk about, and we mentioned it a little bit, and this isn't so much comparing the two resorts. It's just kind of comparing them in a way that I would use them. One resort is a lot better at this than the other, and that's just being a bed. If you are just looking for a bed on Disney property, All Stars. that's where you want to go. It's funny though, because the All Stars, they have a lot more to offer than just a bed. However, you feel less bad about like really not spending that much time at that resort, which is something that I do constantly. Just this past trip that I took, I just wasn't. We even like budgeted time to like hang out at the resort. We ended up hanging out other places just because like we wanted to get all this stuff done. So if you're somebody like me who just doesn't use these resorts as resorts all that much. I mean, you'd be wanting to stay at a place like the All-Star. However, the cool thing about the All-Star is it does have fun stuff. Like, it does have things that you can do and enjoy. So I think that's really great. However, I mean, when it comes to, and I said it already, when it comes to amenities and things that you can enjoy, Coronado Springs has a ton. And I know my parents ended up taking a couple resort days to themselves, and they had a blast. So I was really happy that we were able to stay in a resort like that. So that's definitely something to take into account when you're trying to decide between like a place like Coronado or a place like the All-Stars. Like how much are you going to be utilizing these resorts? That might be something, Brian, that comes up more often when we do hotel reviews like this and like hotels up against each other. I guess for me on this one, the type of resort that I'm looking for right now is more like an all-star resort. However, I do have plans on trying to stay at some of these deluxe resorts. And so maybe in the future, spending that extra money with these resorts might kind of change the way that I experience these resorts. I may want to stay at these resorts longer, but for right now, for me, I'm just kind of looking for a room. So All Stars definitely does that for me.
Yeah, and I kind of talked about that a little bit on the last episode we did like this when I was staying at the Contemporary, and that was kind of purposeful that we stayed there because we wanted the amenities that came with that place. We weren't going to be in the parks as much, and we wanted the nicer pool with the slide. We wanted the activities by the pool that you couldn't get off-site. That's where the problem was for us, is that we were looking off-site for that particular trip. But we were extremely happy with what we had. We had entertainment at night from our hotel room. You know, like you could get certain things so that if you weren't in a park that day, you had many other things to do. I could go jump on the monorail if I wanted to. You know, that was just awesome. And Coronado does that. It offers, you know, the couple of bars that we have mentioned already. It has a restaurant at the top, which those views up there, even if you're not in the lounge or the bar or the restaurant upstairs, if you have a high enough room, you can see fireworks from that tower. So, you know, it's definitely something to consider if you want that entertainment from your room, having that there. And that's exactly how, when my wife and I went a few years ago by ourselves, we knew we wouldn't spend much time in our room. We were going to be at many other places. If it wasn't the park, we would be at other resorts because there were a lot of resorts we wanted to check out. So that's where it came in, that we're like, we just need a place to lay our head for a few hours. We don't need all the amenities that, you know, some of these other resorts might have. So speaking of pools, the dig site pool at the Coronado Springs, they have a slide. You're not going to get that at the value resorts. You just don't get slides at those. So that, you know, we've talked about definition a little bit as far as what defines a moderate versus a deluxe versus a value. That's one of the definitions. You're not getting a slide. You're just getting a basic pool. And that, I think that pool might be the largest pool at the dig site.
The big blue pool at Art of Animation is the biggest pool.
Okay. Well, it's got to be close because it is huge. It's
just very big,
giant,
yes.
Yeah. I think it's just like a giant square, if I remember
It is,
correctly.
yeah. And the cool thing about that too is the theming at that pool is really great. And it's got that giant pyramid and the water's coming down it, and you can actually get up and kind of sit on the pyramid. There's a branch that goes through, so you can't kind of go all the way up the pyramid. But it's cool. It's a cool little photo op. The one time that I stayed there, it was cold out at night. Of course, I don't know why. I always go to Florida and it's cold. But we actually ended up hanging out at the hot tub that was there, and I'm pretty sure that Value Resorts don't have hot tubs. I think that's another big pool thing that Value Resorts don't have, is they're not going to have hot tubs.
I believe you're right.
Yeah.
I was about to say no, but what I'm thinking of was like a separate kids pool, I believe.
Yeah, there's splash pads and stuff at Value Resorts, but the one time we just jumped into that pool and swam all the way over to the pyramid and hung out there for a little bit and then left, because it was actually very cold out. But it's a very cool pool, and I have to say, when I was there, it was a busy time, and the hot tub was busy because it was cold, but the pool in general wasn't really that busy. However, Value Resort pools can get busy. When I just recently was at Disney, the pools were busy sometimes, and it was cold, like legit cold. So that just kind of shows you how determined some of these people are to enjoy the Florida-ness of everything that's going on, enjoying the pools. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind too, is that, I mean, if you want to enjoy a pool, there's a high possibility that you may be sharing it with like a couple hundred kids.
Do remember that they do keep the pools heated, so when it is cold out, it might be more comfortable to stay under the water as much as possible. And it's just going to be cold when you get out. But yeah,
that was actually a cool thing to look at too, because you'd come home. I always say that when I'm at Disney, when I go home. Yeah. You'd come home to your resort and you'd walk back by where the pool is, and you just see all of this just like heat and like mist, and like it almost looked like smoke. Like sometimes it was super thick, like you couldn't even see the other side. But it was because the pools are heated, and it was like 40 degrees out. So yeah.
Gosh, I remember we were there in October once, and getting up in the morning with, you put your shorts on and get ready for a park day, and it's like 40 degrees out. It's like, what the heck am I doing?
Exactly.
But that sun comes out, man, and it was warm.
Yeah, it can go from 50s to 80s pretty quick.
yeah, really quick. So yeah, we talked about the food court at the All-Stars. We've talked about the bars and the restaurants that you get at Coronado. And if you notice, there's only the one sit down. I believe Toledo up at the top takes reservations. Mm-hmm. That's the only restaurant there that does that. The rest of them is just basically a come as you are. Mm-hmm. And that is kind of the definition, that again, in that definition of moderate. If you think about your deluxe resorts, you're going to get at least one, more likely two or three restaurants that you can reserve a seat and have sit down and have a meal. So another point of that definition is transportation. You alluded to the buses, and we talked about the buses in Coronado having the internal system. Moderates will have one, possibly two ways to travel. Coronado just has the buses. Mm-hmm. They don't have anything else yet. I believe at some point, and I think it's been delayed because of COVID, but I think at some point we're going to see the gondolas get over there. Mm-hmm. It just seems like the next progression would be to send it into the Animal Kingdom area. Yeah. But I just, so that might change that resort a little bit again. But if you look at maybe Port Orleans, you have boat transportation and bus transportation there. And of course you add on the monorail or the Skyliner, wherever some of these other resorts are. So that's how, like if you're staying at the Contemporary, you've got You can walk to a park, you can monorail to a park, you can boat to a park. You've got all those transportations available to you. The All-Stars, you're just going to end up with a bus, which is part of that congestion you were talking about, where there's going to be a line in the morning to get to parks. The last time I had stayed there was still when they were doing extra magic hours, and those rotated to different parks, so you knew which ones had it by how long the line was in the morning, right? And nowadays they don't have that. It's available at every park. So it made me, when you were talking about that novice people being a little bit smarter, made me kind of wonder if that early entry might be part of the equation. But yeah, it's a problem in the morning, and it's a problem when you leave in a park at night as well. Coronado, you're not going to get that as much. I don't know what it is that you don't get as many people staying there, and you don't get as many people then leaving the parks at night. You did say that it was a problem with the internal buses catching one at a later stop, and you would go to the first stop. So that's something you have to think about. So for these two resorts, you're getting buses. And for either one, you can always use Uber if you wanted to and pay extra. So those are your options transportation-wise.
Yeah, and something I kind of want to mention too is the fact that Coronado Springs is a very large convention hotel. They've got a couple really big convention areas. So you'll see a lot of times when there are conventions happening, a lot of business people. And they won't necessarily be park people. They might end up going to the parks anyways. I know if I was sent to a convention there, I'd be super excited and going to the parks all the time.
Absolutely.
But a lot of these times it's just business people hanging out, and so they'll hang out at the bar, they'll go get some dinner, maybe they'll go into Orlando or something, but they won't be kind of taking up bus seats and stuff like that. So that is something that people have mentioned before, is that sometimes it can get overrun by business people when there's a big convention happening. And that also, these two resorts are extremely similar. That can also happen at the All-Stars with cheerleaders and marching bands and stuff like that. So you kind of have to pick your poison on that one. Like, do you want a bunch of cheerleaders running around, or you want businessmen running around? Honestly, I mean, I would pick businessmen, because I just don't think they would get in the way all that much. However, I've stayed at All-Stars, and I've noticed that there were either marching bands or like cheer squads hanging out. And I mean, the worst thing that they do is just start cheering in the pool, because they always end up doing that. But I mean, I've never had a big issue, although I just don't care. I mean, I'm in Disney. Like, it's gonna be loud sometimes. There's gonna be screaming children. Like, there's gonna be crowds. I'll take all of it, because that's that's how I always grew up at Disney. It was always busy, but we never cared, because we were at Disney.
Exactly. It's just part of the game and part of the fun, and I always give people weird looks when they're giving dirty looks to kids, and it's like, you're at Disney World.
Yeah.
It comes with the territory. Just enjoy yourself. So anyway, I thought this was a good one. I think we did a pretty good job of comparing the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
But there might be people out there that still have some questions. If that's the case, let us know. Drop us an email. Catch us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or even the TikTok. As I like to tell my kid, the tickety talks. It just drives him crazy. But yeah, we'd love to talk to you. As we had read the one earlier in the episode, we'd love to have you come out and join us in the conversation there. We have the Miles from Main Street community. getting conversations going there every day. So it'd be great to have you join us out there as well. And also, I tend to forget this one. Please rate and review the show on your podcast rating place of choice. It would really help us out if you guys could rate and review the show. On Facebook, I believe Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, and Spotify are all doing that.
And don't forget to like and subscribe on our Facebook channel now, because we're on Facebook. Go check out our most latest video. We actually have some pretty cool video that we show on there, so it's pretty fun. So go check us out there as well.
And by Facebook, he means YouTube.
Did I say Facebook?
You did twice.
Wow, I said it twice. YouTube. Like and subscribe at YouTube.
And it's very simple. We're just miles from Main Street on YouTube.
Yep. It's easy enough. But yeah, I thought this was a good one. We were able to talk about a lot of really great stuff. But as we always say, some live close,
but others don't.
So let's talk about it. We'll see you next time on Miles from Main Street.